Happy to have all of you here. It's amazing. We started to do this event. We just did a random Thursday, and then we started doing it once a month with Dave Gerhardt or other CMOs, and that was once a month. And now we're testing every other week, one with a guest like Dave or Latney, and another one with just me presenting as like a quasi demand gen live for an hour slot during business hours. That also works for the UK and Europe. And so great to have you all here. We are trying to switch up the topics a little bit. And so the reason that, so the topic that we'll be covering today is all about LinkedIn. The reason that we decided to move on this topic is because there's been a lot of chatter recently about that LinkedIn is dead. The opportunity is over. And like, it couldn't be farther from the truth. I don't think you could be more incorrect about the opportunity on LinkedIn as it stands today. Is it harder to be successful and break out than it was when I started posting, frequently in 2019? For sure. And we're going to talk through the dynamics of social platforms and why this happens, because this is a pattern that happens on every single social platform. And so for LinkedIn, you'll be able to understand it, but also in the future, for any other future social platform, you'll be able to understand the dynamic of how that happens. Another thing that happens when platforms are early, and we go through that curve of adoption, you'll see this, is that when they're very early, losers win. People that don't have a good strategy, people that aren't providing value, because the reach is so high and the availability of space is also so high that losers can win. Those like losing strategy, let's put it that way, people with a losing strategy can be successful, and those people will over time get filtered out based on the users and the engagement and how the algorithm evolves. And so we're going to go into a bit of data here. So I would guess that what prompted some of the people that are writing these posts is about the metrics on LinkedIn. And so I'm going to talk year to date about the metrics. At a high level, some people might think that this is bad. So year to date for my profile, year to date compared to the previous time period of last year, my post views are down by 78%, from 5.8 million to 1.2 million. My likes are down 56%. My comments are down 44%. I haven't looked at this data since probably like around this time last year, because I actually don't think that it's that important. I don't need it anymore, but you all get the sense. All of the metrics that people are looking at for me are going down. But what's going up? Engagement rate is going up. My engagement rate is up 104%, from 2.1 to 4.4. And Refine Labs pipeline is up by 129% during the same period of time. And so there's something working here when you look at the actual business data, but a lot of the metrics that people use to quantify success in social are going in a different direction. And I actually expected those metrics to move in that way. And I actually wanted them to move in that way if you look at views and different things. And I'm going to talk through why I expected this stuff to happen. And so to start, I think that everyone knows this, like probably most people on this Zoom heard about me through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the B2B networking highway. It's where everything is going down in B2B right now on the internet, right? There are communities, there are other places, but if you look at the mass, they have the most mass of B2B buyers and the most engagement on any platform talking about business things. So when people are like, LinkedIn is dead, what I'm thinking is, where else are you going to go? What else are you going to do? You're going to go back to building trade show booths? You're going to be running emails? You're going to go back to your blog strategy? Like, I get that it's a little bit harder to win right now, and we're going to talk through strategy and some adjustments that people could make. I get that it's a little bit harder to win right now, but you need to look and be like, it's actually the best opportunity that exists still. And until something else comes out where you get a mass amount of movement, which the only place that has a chance of doing that right now is TikTok, and TikTok will age up. And we will see more people that are in the age groups of B2B buying. I would imagine that a lot of people are there, but not maybe in a mass yet. So there's nothing even like in the fringe of what we're looking at of something that's going to take this attention, because when you have a social platform, what you do is you have some amount of time that someone spends there to consume information, and people are going to consume information. And so it's just about where they do it and how long they spend there. And at the moment, LinkedIn is dominating. And so as a kind of like a 1.0, I want to talk through the dynamics of like how social platforms work in terms of adoption and engagement and things like that. There's a period of time at the beginning where you have early adopters and not a lot of people posting content, and people are just sort of like moving on that. That's a good time to move in, but oftentimes it can be too early. You potentially people that moved on Clubhouse and then watched it die, right? The next point is where you really, really want to be in. The next point is where user growth continues to grow, where mass amounts of people are moving onto a platform over a period of time. But when those people move, they don't post, they just look, which means that there's not a lot of people posting content, but there's a lot of people there wanting to see content. And that's where you break through, which was a 2018, 2019, parts of 2020 on LinkedIn. And then you get to a spot where people start spending a lot of money on ads. And so and more people are posting organically. So the amount of content that's in the platform is going up, and potentially the user growth of the platform needs to outperform the amount of the growth of people posting content. So you have these two lines. You have the amount of people that are posting content, and you have the growth of the user base of people that are using the platform on a daily, monthly, weekly basis. And at some point, the growth of the amount of people posting content and running ads grows faster than the user growth of the platform, and organic reach starts to go down because there's more content than available eyeballs. And then that continues to accelerate and grow to a rate where LinkedIn right now, yes, organic reach is down relative to where it was before, but I would consider where LinkedIn is at the moment to be similar to what I would think about where Instagram was in 2016 or 17. And so I would expect that LinkedIn has 2 to 3 more years before you get no organic reach, but it will happen. It's pretty much there on Instagram. Every social platform goes through that same type of curve. And so we're in this growth, we're probably in the middle phase where it's getting pretty close, if not already. I've looked before, there's not a ton of data on this. It'd be hard to tell, but we're probably at a place where it's pretty close to the amount of new content coming through, and the amount of user growth is starting to level off. And that's the reason why organic reach is going down. And so when you think about that effect, we need to start on strategy, because like at the beginning of platforms where you can win doing basically anything, over time, as there's more content, it becomes more competitive. And when it becomes more competitive, strategy matters. And so when we think about strategy on LinkedIn, if you think about it broadly without going between personal profile and company profile, we'll talk about that later. But at the beginning, just broadly, it's thinking about who are we trying to communicate with? How do we get them into our audience so that they can see our content? How do we produce content consistently so we can get a lot of feedback? How do we analyze that data qualitatively and quantitatively so that we can continue to revise our strategy so that we rapidly get better? The key on LinkedIn is rapidly getting better, and most people don't do it. And so a lot of people find something that works, wash, rinse, repeat. And over time, people start to tune it out. That would be like me if it was in May of 2019, when I could show up on any Saturday on LinkedIn and I could write a text post, and I knew that more than 1 million people would see it. And I knew that there would be engagement on the post for more than like close 3-4 weeks. And I did that for like 6 weeks in a row. And when I was doing that, what I realized is that, yeah, we were getting a lot of views. Yeah, I was pumping up my Shield dashboard. Yeah, I was getting a lot of comments, but our pipeline was actually going down because I wasn't talking about anything relative to the business. And so that was the point that we started to make a transition into video, deep subject matter expertise through video that's driven through podcasts or events to micro content onto LinkedIn, which is the formula that I recommend for almost any B2B company, especially when you're using a subject matter expert that is busy, because the content is always flowing and they can, like me showing up at this event, I do the talk, and then after that, all the content gets post-produced and then I can post it. And so identifying who you're going after and what your strategy is and what you're trying to communicate and how it is valuable to people, I think is the one of the places where a lot of people miss. I feel like a lot of people just chase whatever's working in the algorithm, which at the moment is polls, but earlier there was other, like, quote unquote hacks in the algorithm, and hacks might get you somewhere, but long-term consistency of a well-executed strategy is the winning formula. The reason being is that if you set the foundation with that strategy, then it's very easy to move it from LinkedIn to whatever else emerges. If you have a shitty strategy, it's way harder to go and take a bad strategy from LinkedIn where you're hacking the algorithm, and then when LinkedIn starts to decline, try and go and move that to a different platform where the dynamics of that platform are different and you lose. And so it's truly about, how do I create information that people need? That I get a message a ton on LinkedIn about, like, I log in every morning on LinkedIn, your post is the top post that I see, and I want it every day. I log in to see that. That's what everyone should strive to get to. So I'm sure there'll be questions on strategy. We can go through any of those in depth with people afterwards. The next thing I want to talk about is mindset. And so the mindset that I believe that I bring to LinkedIn is very different than what other people bring. I imagine and compare it to the idea that I'm at the largest B2B conference every day. I can talk to a ton of different people at once. I'm the speaker on the keynote stage when I post content. I'm a audience attendee for other people's content when I'm engaging. I can send people messages or start conversations. Other people can reach out to me. And that's the way that I think about it. And when you think about it in that way, if you think about, I'm creating information as if I'm presenting at the largest B2B conference in my industry, and I need to put out stuff that's quality that 1,000 people are going to sit through and consume every day, it might change what you do. It might change how you think about what you're trying to communicate to people in that setting. So mindset is about trying to create a parallel where you go into it with the right intent. And then it's also about thinking about the difference between marketing and selling. And so what I do on LinkedIn is 100% content marketing with effective distribution, has nothing to do with sales, but it drives a ton of sales, because what I'm doing is I'm communicating information that other people would do in a sales conversation. And I'm taking that, what would be communicated in a sales conversation, and communicating it broadly in a way that people like. And so trying to figure out how that, I think that's a key takeaway for a lot of people here. The last part of the mindset is that this is a infinite journey on LinkedIn. I think a lot of people try and move too quickly. After a month or two, they burn out because they're not seeing that quick hit of like, oh, I'm not a millionaire in 2 months, so I might as well just stop doing it. It doesn't work like that. And so it's a forever type of game, because at some point when LinkedIn matures, you're going to have wanted to have a diversified strategy where you've started to build on a different platform with another audience, so that when LinkedIn declines, you can continue to grow somewhere else. And so thinking about it with a long-term window, like you're trying to build relationships forever, like you're trying to have people think about you in a good way forever, is a huge insight. I kind of alluded to this, but when we think about content types, I see what most people are doing right now is polls to hack the algorithm, and text posts. And so what I've been doing for the past 2 years, and I credit a lot of the success of the growth of my company to, is not doing that. I haven't posted a poll yet. And moving into video for a very specific reason. One, not a lot of people are doing it. Two, it's the best way that I communicate. Three, the amount of depth that you're able to communicate and the amount of trust and credibility that you're able to build through video is dramatically different than what you can in text. And so for all of those reasons, I believe that video is the preferred platform. I also recognize that a lot of people may not want to do video, which is fine. You need to figure out what works best for you. But I'm pointing out that one of the main drivers of our business has been posting video content on LinkedIn as frequently as possible, up to once per day for a very long period of time, which leads me into consistency, another place where a lot of people miss. I haven't seen almost anybody on the internet that has had a consistent output cadence on LinkedIn for the period of time that I have. And that is only down to commitment, a general framework to create content, and that's it. And having the right mindset, that's what consistency comes down to. And that's another one of the main reasons why I've been able to have such a large amount of success, because the only times that I haven't posted content for a period of like 3 to 5 days at a time is when I've been on vacation. And oftentimes, even when I'm on vacation, I'm posting a couple of times. And so being able to be consistent comes down to having a framework. In terms of having a framework, what we do here and what I've been doing since I started is I have forced content creation in my calendar every week. And so that would be an example like this for an event. I do almost 2 events a week now that force me to create content on a recurring basis. So only if we did that, I would get 2 podcasts out of it, which would give me somewhere between 10 and 30 micro videos for LinkedIn. In addition to that, I'm a guest on podcast almost every week. We do internal podcasts here. And then we put on ad hoc events, which create a large amount of content assets that can be distributed on a period of time. And so at the beginning, I had no backlog of content. I was trying to write content and I would run out of ideas. And now we probably have 2,000 videos in a box drive that I've never even posted. We have such a backlog of content because of the creation that I can be more selective in what I post. The other benefit of doing it on an ongoing basis is that you rapidly iterate on messaging, whether it's for your own brand or for your company's narrative. You can rapidly iterate on messaging. The way that I talk about Refine Labs and what we do and all the details underneath it 2 years ago versus now is completely different, is way more clear. It just resonates better because I'm constantly talking about it, collecting audience feedback about what's resonating and what's not, and continuing to iterate, which I think a lot of companies do that very poorly. I think they go down and they make a messaging document and they stick with it, and then they won't do it again until they're going through like, oh, we need to redesign our category or we're going to launch a new product. Like, messaging is something that if you're in the market talking to customers, it's something that you can update in like agile way almost all the time. And then the last piece that I think has done really well for me, which is probably like one of the lesser important ones, but I do think it's important as well, is having an engagement strategy. And on an engagement strategy, you basically have 2 streams. And so you have engagement on your own posts, which take up a majority of my time right now. I try and answer as many comments as I can on my own posts. And then I'm always trying to scroll through LinkedIn on my breaks or when I have 5 minutes between calls or different things like that to see if there's something in the top feed, because I've curated my feed that the first 10 posts are things that are typically very relevant to me. That if I want to make a comment, the only reason that I'm making a comment is to test messaging. So if somebody said something like the post that said that LinkedIn is dead, and then I respond back, what you're saying is 2 to 3 years premature. There's tons of opportunity on LinkedIn. That comment gets 250 likes, which then drive us to do this keynote. And so there's some interesting things in there. One tactical thing that I think people should still be doing that I've been doing for a long time, and I've recommended to people to do it, is have a proactive audience development strategy. And so what that means is identifying, there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. And I'm just going to tell you my preferred way rather than all of them. And so the preferred way is identify who are the people that are posting content that the people that I want to talk to like. Who are those people? You should be able to make a list of 5 to 20 people total. You should follow them, not connect with them, because all you want to do is get their posts inside of your feed. So they don't need to accept or anything, just follow them. And then I'm going to start to send connection requests to relevant people that like their post. The reason that I'm doing that is the post was similar to the type of content that I'm going to post. And number 2 is they liked that person's post that was posted 2 hours ago. So they most likely use the platform on a daily basis. And that's what you need. A lot of people might have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, but those connections are not relevant or don't want the content that they're posting, or log into LinkedIn every 4 years when they're looking for another job. And so what you need if you're trying to get engagement and impact on content is you need people that are using the platform consistently and want what you're putting out. You can put that in place right now. I believe the limit on connections is 30 a day. And so you could literally add 30 followers proactively every single day of people that want, have a high probability of wanting to see content like what you want to post. So next, I want to move to the concept between personal profiles and company profiles. A lot of people push back on Refine Labs for our strategy of our company page, which is at the point where it's about 12,000 followers now. It drives over 100,000 organic impressions every month. It drives thousands of website visitors that see the content, visit our page, visit our website. And what people don't see, or what they haven't seen in the past, is that what social platforms do is at times they can make major adjustments to how the algorithm works. And so it's happened several times. Sometimes it decreases reach. Sometimes it prioritizes features. We're seeing that right now with the polls on LinkedIn. Instagram did it heavy with stories. Instagram's doing it heavy with, what do they call them? The reels, right? So they prioritize features that give it more reach or prioritize them in the algorithm because they want people to use the feature. And so when we think about the company page, if there was a shift where LinkedIn was like, what we actually want now that we have scale of user growth and we have a lot of people that have been successful on it, what we want to do now is we want companies to invest way more in the ads that they buy on LinkedIn. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start to prioritize company pages and organic to get people very familiar with LinkedIn, so that once they're familiar with LinkedIn, they see the opportunity and they start buying more ads. And that's something that LinkedIn might do. I don't know. I don't talk to people at LinkedIn very often, but you can see logically how that might work from their strategy standpoint. Then they start prioritizing company pages, and every other company over here that was like, fuck company pages, doesn't have any followers, doesn't know how to produce content that people like, doesn't have a process to do all of those things. And we're over here with a full process, tons of followers, and we're going to capitalize in a major way in that. And so that's a good look. Secondarily, we're creating so much content already that the additional workload of putting it on the company page is actually quite low. And so those are some of the reasons why we're doing it. On the employee side, or on the personal side, I've talked about sort of like my approach and journey. But one thing that we've done that's really interesting in continuing to drive our business at Refine Labs is we found a way to essentially execute what other people would call employee advocacy, but in a way that people actually want to consume, a way that people actually engage with, way that people actually like. What we have in employee advocacy is software that gets marketing canned content and what sales reps push it out and get zero engagement. And what we've done instead is we've empowered our employees with training and resources and the ability to do editing and like spots to be guests on podcasts, to create content so that they have thoughts that they can publish. And so it's more like enablement than advocacy. I think advocacy might be the wrong term, because I think it drives the behaviors that we talked about just sharing canned content. What we actually need is enablement. And the number one thing in enablement, and I see a lot of companies fall down here as well, is the only way that you're going to be able to effectively enable a pretty decent set of the amount of employees you have in your company to execute a proper LinkedIn strategy is if there's somebody in your company that's doing it very well already. And so anyone on the Zoom could be that person. Maybe you already are that person, to be the person that is the best at executing LinkedIn in your business. I believe that would be something that companies would really value. So I'm going to close out here, because I think that we're going to get to questions and it's going to be super valuable. But the take home here is that there is an absolutely incredible amount of opportunity on LinkedIn. I think that when you think about where we are in the curve of adoption on LinkedIn, people need to start building on LinkedIn. A good strategy will win there, but you also need to think about how you're diversifying. So where we're diversifying one in podcast, which is, if we look at our self-reported attribution data, like LinkedIn still drives a majority of those, but podcast is growing. And so podcast will continue to grow for us. And then we're looking like events, recurring events has been another good one to sort of like diversify our channels. And then over time, as those opportunities present themselves, we're going to continue to diversify. But the point is that we're diversifying forward, not backward. I'm not diversifying with blog posts. I'm diversifying with the next channel that's going to be able to drive major growth like LinkedIn and podcasts have. And so major opportunity for people to take in. We covered some level of strategy. We covered some level of the difference between large scale employee profiles, one personal profile, company pages, and the way to really be successful is, in my view, to talk to a lot of the people that you want to like and see your posts, and really, really understand a lot about them, which gives you tons of insights about what to post. And so couldn't recommend deep, like first party customer research any further to drive your strategy, especially when done on an ongoing basis. And I hope after this 30 minutes of talk, the debate is over. There is still a major opportunity on LinkedIn. Let's get to questions.
Yeah, so a lot of people asked about the personal profile versus the company page. What do you have to say for people who only want to execute on the company page, no personal profile whatsoever?
So I think that if you're going to do that specifically on the LinkedIn channel, other channels are different, right? Like when I was a marketer in 2017 and it was Facebook combination of paid and organic, they were both working at that time. I could just do everything under the brand, but that's not exactly how it's working in the dynamics of LinkedIn today. And so I think that you'd be missing an opportunity by not leveraging some level of employee profiles and only going into company page, because the amount of effort that it takes to create the content is high. And then you're basically like sort of like walking with a crutch on distribution, because you're going only through a personal or a company page, when you could be going through a personal profile and probably getting somewhere between 3 and 10x more visibility.
Does that have to do with the connection strategy on the personal profile? Because on the company page, you can't add more people to your network. You can only invite them to be following the page, for instance.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I don't fully understand how the algorithm works in this respect. We can compare, I mean, I can do like a general comparison between our company page and my profile in level of engagement. And so my personal profile has about 67,000 followers and our company page has about 12,000. And our company page on average probably gets somewhere between 80 and 120 likes. And mine videos probably get somewhere between 350 and 500. And so you could make the case that if our company page scaled at the same rate to that level, that it might actually be getting more engagement than my profile when it got to that level of followership. Who knows the real answer? But I do believe that you should have these two running in parallel. And if you really had to choose, I think that I would recommend a personal profile. But if you are needing to make that choice and you are going to move into one personal profile, it must be with somebody that has a significant financial stake in the business, where you're not vulnerable to them leaving and taking everything that they built for you. The benefit on building on a brand profile, especially for a software company, is that if the personal profile of somebody, if they do something wrong and get fired, if they leave, if they, if somehow their reputation is destroyed and their, profile goes down for any possible reason, you get less impact out of that. You have something that you can fall back on that's owned by the brand. And so those are some of the considerations that I would make during this decision.
Well, to piggyback off of that one, someone submitted a question that says, what value does Refine Labs company profile bring you that your personal profiles don't?
Additional reach and engagement, ability to operate without me. I do nothing on the company page. Right. So at some point in my life, I might not want to be posting every day. Who knows? I'm right at the moment. I'm thinking I'm going to want to keep doing it as long as it's driving an impact. But the company page can operate without me. And if I think back to the reason why we're doing the company page, is it's R&D for us. And so when we made this decision to go on in the company page, my belief was that companies are going to, when LinkedIn is going to make some change, and don't quote me on this because who knows, it may not happen, but this was my hypothesis, that LinkedIn would make some algorithm change in the future where company pages got more important, and we would have a framework to say, we know how to create a company page that your buyers want, that requires no execution from your subject matter expert or the host of your podcast or anything like that. It can run independently, and that's how we can do it. And so I think the biggest benefit is that it can run independently if you have a content strategy that's feeding it.
Cool. I'm going to bring Sam on. He had a good question.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, on the topic of personal pages, this is a method I've seen another company do quite well. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Is having a Slack channel internally where the 2 or 3 like LinkedIn evangelists or stars or promoters or whatever, they'll share all the content there, and then the wider company will share, like, subscribe, whatever. Like so you have 2 or 3 people making the content, and then we'll have a system internally for getting everyone to like it. So each post automatically has, say, 50 to 100 likes. It'll all be people internally, but I've seen it work quite well. Just want to get your thoughts. Is it kind of hacky, or is it a good like starting off point?
Yeah, that's essentially like a company focused engagement pod is what it is. So the objective of an engagement pod is early on when you post something to drive up engagement, to amplify reach so that more people use it. I think that it's smart, but it will not replace the idea. It won't fix it if your content strategy is wrong. It'll accelerate if your content strategy is right. And I see a lot of people that use these types of pods as a fix for what's fundamentally broken, is that their strategy and what they're posting is not resonating with people. So what ends up happening is you get 50 to 100 likes from your company and then very few from anybody else, because nobody else wanted to see the content. You're just boosting it. And so that's the trade-off here. I think that you don't necessarily need it if you have a good strategy. And we don't do this here, but like, I guess theoretically we could, if I could post and then 35 people straight away of our people that work at our company liked it, maybe it would get more engagement. I'm not sure. I don't feel like we need to do that, but it could accelerate a strategy that's working. The thing to think about when you do this is our content strategy right before we move into this, like the acceleration. I'm happy to answer a follow-up there, but that's my 2 cents.
No, that's helpful. So it's potentially effective for starting to grow some sort of following, but don't rely on those metrics long term. Or like if you start off with 100 likes from internal people, don't coast on that essentially.
Yeah, and if you're posting good content and you get 100 likes from your company, and then 10, 1,000 more people like it after that because it was good stuff, then by all means take it. Like I've taken advantage of basically what I call it being smart, right? There are openings inside of platforms that you could consider a hack in order to grow faster. But the difference is whether you're using it in a hacky way, like what people are doing with polls right now, where they're posting, do you like polls on LinkedIn? And the options are yes or no. Like, it's completely just dumb. And instead using it to accelerate a strategy that's working. And there's a careful sort of like balance in that. But like, I'd be lying to you if some of the things that I've done, people would perceive as hacks. I would say that connecting with 30 people proactively, a lot of people would consider a hack. I consider that being smart by getting people that want to see my content into the stream. So if it's working for you or anyone else that's doing something like that, I would say keep doing it. I don't see any risk in terms of like platform stuff. There are some like hacks on Instagram where you can get your account shut down. But the only things that I'm seeing LinkedIn accounts get shut down for are ridiculous automation of spam messages, completely inappropriate content, inappropriate direct messages, or the things where I'm seeing people get their profiles shut down on LinkedIn. So using engagement type stuff should be fine.
Cool. On to the next. David asked, I'm curious about your connection strategy. Are you primarily connecting with members of your target audience and prospects, or are you casting a wider net?
I've always gone with a wider net strategy, which I will talk through in a lot of detail because I think it's interesting for people to understand, right? So what most people probably are doing is they're taking their 100 accounts in their ABM list, and then they're going to go out and use Sales Navigator to connect with these people inside of LinkedIn, regardless of whether they ever log in. And they're going to say, okay, we need to get the director level up in the finance department. We need to connect with all those people. And then after that, we're going to engage with their posts 3 times and then send them a cold DM and hope that they book a meeting with us, right? Like, that's probably what a lot of people are doing in terms of their connection strategy. What I'm suggesting is very different. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for people that like marketing content. The reason is because those people that like content, like it, comment, share, amplify, which then gives you a lot of organic reach. A lot of people see your content being shared around, therefore most likely believe you're more credible, therefore more likely to follow or connect with you because they see it frequently. And then you start pulling in the CMOs and the target accounts and those things like that. And so I like the wider strategy because it takes advantage of the amplification effect in social. And I don't see you getting that with your top 100 account list for a lot of people that never log into LinkedIn.
Do you think that people who are not outwardly connecting with other people are missing a lot of opportunity for further engagement on their posts?
Definitely.
Can they still be successful without doing that, or is that a big?
Of course, you can still be successful without doing it, but you're missing a big opportunity. If you do the math in my head, if you send 30 connection requests a day, and let's just assume for the sake of math, it's not going to be 100% accept rate, but let's just assume that it is for this point. So you do 30 a day for 30 days, you get 900 new followers every month. And then you build that up over a year. And so you actively are connecting with somewhere between 6,000 and 12,000 total people, which create 6,000 to 12,000 followers. And then along the way, if those people are engaging with your posts, it amplifies it even further, which then drives people to inbound connect with you or inbound follow you. So I do think that it would be something smart to do. The platform makes it available. You used to be able to connect with hundreds of people a day. Now they've limited it to 30. At some point, they might limit it even more. So if you want to take advantage of it, I suggest that you do, because the rules of that are changing dynamically.
Awesome. I'm going to bring Michael on now for a question.
Oh, how exciting. I get to cause problems live instead of in chat.
What's happening?
So you'd mentioned finding major, I guess, influencers or accounts, for lack of a better term, to follow and find other people interested in your content. But the problem I've been finding is, LinkedIn likes to place you in the echo chamber or kind of bubble, and breaking out of it to find people is tough. And then the second problem is certain industries don't have as much content. So there's a lot of marketing and sales content. But for example, I talk to small businesses. There's fewer good small business content creators. So
for a lot of small business, especially localized small business or other things, like they probably aren't using LinkedIn because it's not the most valuable place to be. And so it's, again, going back to your audience, right? If you're a like $1.5 million restaurant or a $2 million mom and pop like gift store in a tourist area, the odds of you using LinkedIn are super low, because it's a global platform that doesn't have a lot of local constraints. And so that's probably why you're not seeing a lot of like SMB movement on there. And so you got two options in that case. You can be the guy for like small business marketing or small business growth or whatever it is on LinkedIn, and then let the people find you, which is a total option. The second one is to have a top level content pillar that allows you to distribute on LinkedIn, but also go somewhere else. And so I think for you, it's about identifying the channel. But when it comes to LinkedIn, just because people aren't here right now doesn't mean they'll never be here. And so being able to build and then let people come to you, I think, is a good strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. But I would agree that you're not like, you're probably not going to find a lot of people that are speaking specifically to that demographic that are getting a ton of engagement. But I would argue that whoever does will get a lot of engagement, because there are a ton of less than $5 million revenue business executives that spend time on LinkedIn. And I think that's a really interesting sweet spot for someone. Good to see you, Michael.
Okay, we got this question in advance. What kind of content should I post if I don't feel like I'm an expert yet? Kind of a newbie in marketing and don't get a lot of opportunity to experiment in my org right now.
Just talk about the things that you're learning. Right. So like some of my posts, I like, yeah, people think that I'm an expert, but I post a lot of it just to hear what people think. Like some of them I don't even have strong points of view on, but I send them to hear what people think about it, which gives me feedback, which helps me clarify the message. And so I would focus on the things that you're learning or the things that you're doing. So today we got into work and we had this challenge with our email marketing. Our delivery rates were going down. I started looking at things. What I found is this. And then once I did this is how I fixed it. And you could take that post and reword the order so that it was a little bit more authoritative, and that stuff would work. That's basically what most people do on LinkedIn right now. Just, the learning of the day or the activity of the day, I think, is a good place to start. The second thing that you can do that I think is really interesting, and a lot of people do it on my posts, and I did it on other people's posts when I was getting started, is use other people's posts and then your comment on their post to inform what you will post in the future. So basically somebody else is creating the idea of what to post, but then you're putting in your 2 cents and then converting that comment into a more detailed post, I think, is also a really good strategy. The last one to throw it out there that I think is interesting as well is perhaps you're not the expert, but maybe what you want to do is you want to have, I'm just going to pretend in the space here. So let's just, for sake, say you're a marketing associate. I don't know what the job title is, but let's just say you're a marketing associate. And what you want to do in the future is you think you want to become a CMO. And so in order to achieve that goal while also helping on your LinkedIn presence is you could create the growth to CMO podcast. And then you'd probably have quite a bit of success inviting successful CMOs onto your podcast and talking about either their career journey or the important things about being a CMO. And then you can use your conversations with them either to inform your posts. I was talking to, blah, blah, blah CMO last week, and she shared this idea. I thought it was super interesting. I'm just going to share her idea, or I'm going to share the video of us two talking. And the last piece is that you're going to learn a ton. And so that might accelerate the process to the place where you feel confident in your ideas, where you can form your ideas and post yourself.
Cool. Could you talk a little bit more about how to prove out the efficacy of the strategy within your org if leadership is iffy about their employees posting on LinkedIn? Like, how would you explain the benefit of doing so and show them that it's working or it's tracking in the right direction, given the limited metrics on the platform?
I wouldn't. I would find a new place to work. Trying to convince executives, especially given wherever you are in the organization, trying to convince executives to do things that they don't want to do is most likely a losing strategy. And so what I've found is that changing people's minds on things like this is nearly impossible. I was in a business doing a lot of this marketing, driving millions of dollars of net new business, and still didn't get the recognition of the impact or the budget allocation movement relative to the contribution. And the company continued to invest in sales because it was such a sales-driven organization, even though we were acquiring customers for 10% of the CAC. And so that's my data point of the idea that it's going to be very hard to change people's minds. And I've gone through that cycle with other CEOs that don't get marketing, and I've consulted with hundreds of people at this point that are trying to convince an executive to do something they don't want to do, and it's always a losing game. And even if you get a step further where they're like, okay, we're going to post on LinkedIn, every single time that you want to do something, you're going to feel resistance. And so it's going to slow down innovation, as opposed to moving to some place with people that already get it. You never get that resistance. You move 10 times faster, you accelerate your career, you have a lot of success. When there are big opportunities like LinkedIn, we moved immediately. That's why we're successful. Most companies spend 6 months debating what their strategy is on LinkedIn before they ever start. We started the first day. And so I think there's something to be said, regardless of whether you're a salesperson trying to sell people that don't want to be convinced, whether you're a marketer that wants to try and convince executives to do something that they don't want to be convinced of. I spend very little time trying to convince people of things that they don't want to believe in.
Definitely. Okay. How do you handle finding the time to create the content, the editing, the subtitles, the images when you're all on your own to start?
As quickly as possible, figure out the things that you can outsource. And so, like, for me, when I was doing it, I spent, 4 months on my own, just getting a couple of customers, doing work like that. And the first person that I hired was a video editor. And it's just different than how a lot of people would do it, right? And so I hired a video editor because I can do account management, I can do sales, I can do marketing. This is one thing that I don't need to do. But it's fueling our customer acquisition. And so that was the first person that we hired that handled all of the post-production, captions, titling, all of those different things, so that all I needed to do was show up and talk, and then all I needed to do was post and engage. So for anyone that's doing it, the things that I think that you should definitely own is if you're trying to do something like what I'm doing, is you need to own the actual like long form creation, like what we're doing right now. You need to obviously be there and share your thoughts and get it recorded. Anyone else can handle all of the editing and packaging and different things like that. I believe that if you're doing it, you should also be writing the copy. I wish I had more concrete data on this, but I just know it to be true. And I don't feel like I need data to communicate this. the copy that you write in the post is almost more important than the video. It matters so much. And I think a lot of, especially people that are moving into video, might kind of like throw in the towel on copy. They're like, the video is going to do all the work. The copy is super important. And so I think people should be writing the copy, and I think people should be engaging both in the comments and in direct messages on their own, not outsourcing that to like a virtual assistant or something. It's all the touch points. You've done all of the work up front. You've created the content, you've gotten it edited, you've written the copy, you've posted it. And now all of a sudden 10 people are commenting on your post and a couple of people are sending you messages, and you're going to give that to a virtual assistant? Why? All of the work that's been done up to that point is to get people to do that. So to get back, I kind of went on a rant there. Sorry, that wasn't directed to you, but just making some points. But to get back on to your question, if you're just getting started, I think as quickly as possible, outsourcing the video editing is what you should get to, because it's a poor use of your time and it's easily outsourced.
Cool. Someone else dropped a question that I don't think you've already addressed. How much do you lean on the company leaders to develop their own content versus your content marketing team writing content for them? Pros, cons with either approach?
The people who are creating the ideas and the thoughts about what to write, if you want it to be a really effective strategy, in my view, should be people that deeply understand your customers. Over time, I talk about this so much, but still continue to be fascinated that most marketers don't even interact with customers. It's like the definition of marketing is understanding customers and bringing that into your company. And so if a marketing manager deeply understands customers better than the executive, which could be the case in some companies, then it would be fine for them to write that and have the executive post out because they have the executive title or different things like that. You can do that. I don't think that's the ideal. I think because what that is it's a Band-Aid for lack of commitment. And so what you actually want is you want somebody that buys into enough and is committed enough to doing it because they believe in the impact and they believe in how much different business development works today than it did when they were a CEO in 2013. Business development and the creation of demand, it's happening a lot on LinkedIn right now, which is a lot different than what it was like in 2013 when your sales team cold called people as the main mechanism to create demand. And so you can, in short, you can do that, but I would look deeper about the level of commitment of the people that you're like running the program through.
Cool. I think we can wrap with questions. If you want to close out with any final thoughts, I think that's the way to go right now.
Sounds great. Appreciate all the questions, everyone. Great to see you here. I feel like the message has been pretty clear, so I'll just sort of reiterate here. Like, if you're seeing anybody say that the opportunity on LinkedIn is over, it's not. That is not true. The reason that I say that is because I've interacted in a lot of different social platforms through the growth maturity curve that I mentioned. You can use that growth maturity curve throughout the rest of your career. Like, that is how social platforms develop, evolve. Some die, right? Like, some never get to the later phases because they die early, and that can happen too. But you can use that as well. And so recognizing where the platform is in the maturity curve and then how much effort and strategy is going to be required to win, I think is super important. And yeah, like for my company, I started this company 2.5 years ago. We've taken on no funding. We've grown to almost 40 employees. We hire incredibly talented people for the main reason that we are visible on LinkedIn. We attract incredible customers with doing no outbound sales because we're good at executing and we're visible on LinkedIn. And so I think there's just, for whether it's you trying to get a better job or a promotion, whether you want to grow your own company, like, the opportunity is there. It's there for everybody. And so hope a couple of people take some of the advice here and go and execute and do a lot of great things. So I appreciate you all joining. If there's questions or anything like that, feel free that we didn't answer, feel free to send them to dgl@refinelabs.com. We'll answer them on a future Demand Gen Live episode for you. And hope you all have a great rest of your week.